Hey, She Ace That listeners, find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Every subscribe, like, and follow goes a long way, and I can't thank you all enough for your support. And with that, let's get into today's episode. Hey, everybody, welcome back to She Ace That. It's your host, Alexandra, and this is episode 25, but it's also actually the season 1 finale for She Ace That. I just decided that today, so this is a crazy, amazing, grateful time for me. We've had 24 episodes before today. That's 24 weeks, 24 Wednesdays in a row since July 2nd when I hit publish on that very first episode. And that was about navigating tryouts. And honestly, I just can't believe we're here. I wanted to talk about what this season has been, what I've learned, and what's coming in season 2 of She Ace That when we return on January 7th of 2026. So I want to take you back to why She Ace That even exists. I created this podcast because I truly believe sports change lives, and the lessons we learn on the court, in the gym, or on a field prepare us for everything that comes after. I'm a former Michigan State University club volleyball athlete. I've coached at the national and varsity levels, played varsity tennis, and honestly played pretty much every sport you can think of. I've coached everyone from youth players to 18U national teams here in Michigan, and I've seen firsthand what it takes to grow, not just as an athlete, but more importantly, as a person. But here's what I didn't expect is right now, since I've been taking a break from coaching on the court while my toddler's young, especially, and life's, crazier than ever. I thought that meant stepping away from the thing that I love the most, developing athletes, having real conversations, being in the thick of it all. And then I started She Aced That. And who knew that virtual coaching and mentoring was a thing that could be so successful? And sitting here recording these conversations, connecting with players and coaches and friends, it's been so rewarding. I get messages from athletes saying an episode helped them through a tough practice, or from parents saying that they finally understand what their kid is going through a little bit more. And that's coaching. And it just looks different than from what I expected. That volleyball sweatshirt in your closet represents way more than just tournaments. And She Ace That is here for players, parents, and coaches, or volleyball and sports lovers. I want to take a minute just to highlight what season 1 actually was. I had guests from Michigan to California, from Nebraska to Texas, players and coaches who have been worldwide. Club coaches, college coaches, professional players, mental performance experts, program builders. Some episodes were only 20 minutes and so effective. Some were well over an hour and could have gone for hours. And every single one had a purpose. I want to take you through the themes that emerged this season because when I look, I can see these incredible threads that connect everything we talked about. Before we do that, though, obviously the NCAA volleyball tournament is ongoing. I will give you guys a rundown on that. And then also there has been, especially in the state of Michigan, a lot of coaching changes for various sports. A few come to mind. I mean, most people probably know about it. They see it in the media, but if you're not really a fan of a team, it's not like you're always watching what's happening to coaching transitions or the things that are happening from that standpoint for Michigan State and University of Michigan, especially for football. There have been a lot of coaching issues the past few years, and I don't really want to highlight it. I don't want to give it more recognition than it deserves because it's pretty awful what has been going on publicly, and I can't imagine the things over the years that have happened behind the scenes. But I think it's just disappointing from a coach's perspective and from an athlete perspective, the way that coaches don't think they're held to as high of a standard as everybody else. And in Michigan, for example, Michigan State had a turnover with their football coach a few years ago. University of Michigan is going through kind of a scandal right now with their football coach. And it just shows yes, we're all humans and we do make mistakes. And I do believe everybody has a way to come back from even the worst of worst situations. It baffles me that public figures, especially coaches who are supposed to be there to be a mentor, they're supposed to represent their programs and their athletes. I've had a lot of conversations on here with coaches, with amazing coaches, amazing people. Everybody I've talked to this year has been so genuine, so kind. And of course, do we all have our flaws? Yes. But, I think to be a coach, you have to lead with genuineness. You have to make sure that you are leading with good intentions on or off the field, in or out of a gym, on or off the court. And a lot of times we see things come out after the fact, really only if they're caught, right? But of situations where these coaches are not living up to their values or their standards, they're not representing their programs properly. And it's just really disappointing to watch. So again, a lot of great topics that we've covered about coaching and how to become an effective coach. And a lot of that is about off the court stuff. It just goes to show that these coaches that are getting a lot of heat, that have done things wrong, are not going the best simultaneously. I think it just tells us all that we need to know through that. So again, don't want to spend too much time on it, but I did just think it was interesting that we've been seeing that happening quite often in the sports world, especially for collegiate sports and professional sports too. But just disappointing, and something to keep in mind as you do go into your coaching days, like what you do and say matters, and who you are as a person matters.
All right, as always, we're going to touch on the NCAA volleyball tournament currently ongoing. And we did just witness like one of the most wild weekends and situations to happen. And this is what I love about the tournaments. Like last week I said, well, I really hope that we see like Texas and Nebraska at the end of this, because I do think that would be a really fun, exciting game to watch. And now they're both out of the Final Four of the tournament. And it's like anything can change, anything can happen. That's why depth of rosters is so important with injuries or burnout. And I believe if a team wants it enough, they can go out and get it. And I've been saying that a lot. And like, obviously, a lot of people are really adamant about Nebraska and like passionate for their programs that they love so much. And I don't blame them for that at all. I think that's the fun of this, right? Like fully backing your favorite schools and who you want to see at the end of this and what you know. Like for Nebraska, they haven't lost a game all season. And they lost their first game in a match almost at the end of a tournament, at the end of their season. And that is, I feel like, honestly, it sucks to go out that way. But also, like, you went undefeated for so long to lose in a tournament. And like, I just think it is a testament to, you know, their whole season is amazing and this tournament shouldn't take anything away from them. So I'm just prefacing everything that I say with that. But again, I always root for the underdogs. I always love to see an upset. And I love that for volleyball, especially, that can happen at any level, anytime. And it just really depends on the game dynamics, the team dynamics, and what's going on in that realm. So the regional finals wrapped up this weekend on December 14th. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this tournament has been chaos in the best way possible. So first, let's talk about who is heading to the Final Four in Kansas City. We've got Pittsburgh, Texas A&M, Kentucky, and Wisconsin. And you might be thinking, like, wait, what about Nebraska? What about Texas? And that's exactly what is so incredible about this. So let's start with the upset that shook the volleyball world, and that's Texas A&M, the number 3 seed, and they took down undefeated number 1 overall seed Nebraska in 5 sets in Lincoln, in Nebraska's home turf, where they hadn't lost in literally over 3 years. So we're taking like an over 1,100 day winning streak at home gone. And that is tough, but like obviously it's inevitable. No team in this world is going to go undefeated for their entire program history. And that's just a fact. And this match was an absolute battle. Like the set scores were like 25-22, 20-25, 35-37 was one of the set points. 35-37. That's like just so much volleyball, and like fighting that and battling for that and have that type of set especially be almost a determining factor. Like you can either win this game by continuing to push through the set, or you are going to go to a 5th set. And that is just something that's crazy to think about. And that 4th set alone, like I just can't even imagine the energy in the arena and like just how exciting it is. Like that's what's fun about volleyball too, is like getting up into the for points and battling and fighting so hard. And you know, Texas, they were on fire, right? Like it's not every day that a team's going to come in and beat Nebraska. Like you really have to be on. It's not that Nebraska wasn't on. It's just like getting lucky with the right things, the right day, the right time on both sides of the court. And it wasn't lucky though for Texas. I feel like they were showing up and executed when it mattered most. And it really worked in their favor of how the game worked out or how the game played out. And this is Texas A&M's first ever Final Four appearance. First ever. So like that's huge. And to take down an undefeated team, to have that, like I can even imagine how those athletes feel. And that's what we all need to drive towards, is those moments where you might not think that you're going to win. You might not think that like you have a good chance, but this just shows that like you can make it for the first time for your program to the end of a tournament and take down teams that they probably weren't even worried about, they weren't worried about losing. And then it gets better. Like just hours after Nebraska went down, Wisconsin knocked out the other number 1 seed, Texas, the defending national champion of a few years ago. And they won a couple titles in a row. And, Wisconsin, they just were like, their serve receive game was so solid that even when Texas took the 3rd set, the Badgers shut the door in the 4th. And I think that was like really critical. Like, who knows what a 5th set would have looked like if they gone to it. And so controlling the sets, controlling the points, like that is all that volleyball is really about, is not allowing the other team to get another set. So both number 1 seeds are out. And that was Wisconsin's 7th Final Four. So they know what this stage feels like. But for them to take down Texas on their home court, that statement is incredible. And honestly, the upset started way back in the first round, though. Like 8 unseeded teams knocked out national seeded teams, including all 4 of the number 7 seeds getting eliminated. And it's just unpredictable. Like you can do your best in brackets for any sport, and to have a perfect bracket is so impossible because the most crazy things will happen, the most normal and expecting things will happen, and just the balance of those is really insane to watch, but so fun. So, here's what we're looking at for the semifinals. They're December 18th in Kansas City, and Pittsburgh takes on Texas A&M, and Kentucky faces Wisconsin. The championship match is set for the 21st at the T-Mobile Center, and I know I've said it 1,000 times, it's going to be on ABC. And just the storylines are incredible. Like, can Texas A&M keep this run going in their first ever Final Four? Will Wisconsin's experience give them the edge? And we can't sleep on Pittsburgh and Kentucky. I mean, part of me, like, always, again, wants to root for the underdogs, but I really would love to see Texas A&M and Wisconsin get through this and see how all these teams fight through the last bit of the chaos. It's just going to be really good volleyball, and nobody can let up at this point of time. And this is where you just have to grind. Like, you really have to lock in and be like, all right, we're 2 games away from winning a national championship. How do we get there, and what do we need to do to get there? And I think what's really cool too to watch is, like, yes, the players, but also the coaching here. To keep your team locked in, it's like you have to bring a certain expectation as a coach, and you have to really set the framework and set them up to be successful in these types of environments. Like, it's not like all season they're going into a volleyball, like an NCAA tournament, right? Like, this is the first time they're going through it this season with this team. It's not the easiest to prepare for, but as long as you really have that mental strength and dynamic, anybody can do it. You just have to, again, really stay locked in. So if you're not planning to watch these matches, highly recommend you do. It's going to be special, and we'll probably do more segments on social media as it goes on. All right. And with that, I want to dive into what I learned the past 6 months, 25 episodes later of She Aced That.
So, like, from a technical standpoint, I've learned so much, from editing to equipment to platforms to analytics. This has been a crash course in content creation for me, and I'm still learning every single day. I have so many ideas I want to execute, just no time to do it. So the first episode compared to now, I just feel so much more like, I feel like I have training wheels on. I feel like I'm ready to go. Night and day difference. Content wise, I've learned that the best conversations happen when I am not following a script and just listen. The best moments come from follow-up questions, not planned ones. Honestly, I've gotten the best responses from things that I think of on the spot. And when someone shares something real, I just really try to focus on leaning into that, because that's where I think we get the most out of those types of conversations. And lastly, community wise, I've learned how tight knit the volleyball world really is. Everybody knows everybody. And that's actually so beautiful. Reaching out to a guest often leads to maybe 3 more introductions, and it's such an amazing place to be. I am grateful for everybody who's taken a chance on talking with me, for, coaches speaking highly of our conversation so that somebody they knew wanted to come on the podcast. And that means the absolute world to me. And I think the world is so small as is. Like, your reputation does matter. And I've said this on a podcast before, but like, I've always been good friends, or at least kept in touch with all my old coaches. I've never burned any bridges, at least, in the sports volleyball world. Like, I was lucky enough to always have good people looking out for me and supporting me. But when you do think about your future career or what you want to do, your past does matter. And again, I fully believe in second chances and that we all make mistakes. Like, even for this, like, if I had something really bad going on in my sports career, or I burned so many bridges because I couldn't look inward, it would be a lot harder to come back and create this platform with a history of something like that, given that the world is so small. Everybody knows everybody. You're always like, there's this some saying of being like 6 points away connected to everybody in the world, one way or another. Again, with social media, it's so much easier to see if you're connected to somebody. But that is just something I learned with this process was, the person I'm interviewing, if I reach out to somebody they know, they're probably going to have a conversation about it. And all I can ask for is that they had such a good experience with me for our conversation that doesn't hinder the future potential interviews I get. And again, that goes for everything in life. And lastly, like moving from being a coach to being an interviewer, it's been a shift for sure. Like I love that I have the technical background and volleyball IQ to be able to have these conversations. It'd be extremely hard if I didn't. But in a lot of ways, like it is that same skill set. And, you want to ask good questions as an interviewer, but honestly, as a coach too. You want to actually listen. You want to make people feel safe enough to be fully real and create space for them to share their story. And there is a power of authenticity with that. And that's been also a biggest lesson for me with some of my favorite moments this season were things that I just never could have even planned for. And I think that just goes to show that, as long as people feel like they have a safe space and that you're receptive, like people want to share their stories and people should. Like everybody has such a unique take on life and what they've gone through. Like for me, I was asked the other day to provide like fun facts for work. And I was like, what is fun about me? But then I'm like, wait, like there are so many things that we all just don't recognize that have shaped us to who we are or that we've experienced. And to us, it might not seem amazing, but when you're actually telling somebody's story, like there are ways that other people can relate and they think it's the world, like they think it's the coolest thing. So, everybody has their stories out there and journeys out there. And I think it's really important to know that even though you might feel like yours is bland, I think there's so many amazing things that everybody in this world has to offer and learn from and grow from. And the only way we do that is by sharing stories, not just sitting behind a screen. With that, I do want to take you through the themes that emerged this season, because when I look back, I can see these incredible threads that connect everything we've talked about. And I'm going to share some of my favorite moments and quotes from each guest that has made She Ace That what it is. I want to start here because this might be the most important thing we've covered all season. We had multiple episodes dedicated to the mental side of volleyball and sports in general. And honestly, this is where the real growth happens. So we had Kristen Woodman. She's known as the mental volleyball coach. She broke down exactly how to actually perform under pressure, not just survive it. She talked about the difference between playing frantic versus playing urgent under pressure and why perfectionism and people pleasing hold so many females back. Her commit to the flip analogy for pushing through fear stuck with me. She said mental toughness isn't about being tough, it's about having tools. And she shared her own story of using volleyball as an escape while navigating family trauma, which shaped her entire approach to coaching. And I do believe that, who we are and the things that have shaped us throughout our lives can catalyst us to be the best people and mentors and coaches that we ever could be. She reminded parents to think about what happens on the car ride home, and that conversation matters way more than you think. We also highlighted Just Connect on our podcast. She gave us the 4C's framework: commitment, confidence, concentration, and composure. And here's what she said that changed everything for me. Confidence is trainable. It's not something that you just have or don't have. You can build it. The best athletes don't just work harder, they train their minds consistently, have awareness of their thoughts, and apply strategies when it matters most. Jess works with the Omaha Supernovas. She knows what elite looks like. And I loved that she shared what that is with us. My good friend Liz Coe, this was our very first podcast guest ever. We talked about court anxiety and playing time struggles, the stuff that keeps you up at night, but nobody really talks about openly. Liz and I go back to our MSU club days, and getting vulnerable about our own anxious court moments was exactly what this podcast needed to start with. My other friend, Alyssa Kerrigan, shared her story about the yips. If you don't know what the yips are, you need to go to that episode, and pushing through JV as a junior. These are real experiences that make athletes feel alone, but they're not. And so many people go through this. So I just genuinely appreciate her perspective on those types of situations that aren't the easiest to handle. The mental performance work isn't soft, it's essential. And I'm so grateful to these people and experts for breaking it down in ways that actually help. Another theme that was really consistent was finding your fit. Like the landscape of volleyball is changing, the transfer portal is real, and athletes are making harder decisions younger than really ever before. Mackenzie Yoakum, this was the most recent interview we had. She went from being a 3-time All State player with nearly 700 kills and made it to states to struggling to see the court in college. She's gone through the transfer portal, but here's what she said that I'll never forget. She encouraged people to not go into the portal unless they really need it because genuinely it is mentally taxing. And that's another thing that athletes don't talk about enough. And not knowing where you're going to be within the next month or two is also really scary. And she also talked about taking back your power, which I think is so important in sports and in life in general. She said, taking back that power and saying, I want this for myself and I'm going to do this for myself is so empowering and it sets you up for so much success in your future. She's at the University of West Georgia now, and her journey shows that it's okay to choose a different path. Sometimes the best decision is the one that surprises everyone. My friend Alex Rapaski talked about the real cost of volleyball, sacrifice, surgeries, and second chances. Her story reminded me that setbacks aren't the end. They're part of the story and our journeys. And in my solo recruiting episode, we talked about taking control of your recruiting journey, even when coaches aren't calling yet. You do have so much more power than you think when it comes to your future and your sports journey. The third theme was building something from nothing. Some of the most inspiring conversations this season were with people who didn't wait for opportunities, they created them. My really good friend, Catherine Richardson, built a boys volleyball program from scratch, like literally from nothing. And that takes vision, it takes guts, and a whole lot of showing up when nobody else is there yet. She talked about what it takes to create opportunities for athletes who didn't have them before. I also felt really fortunate to highlight Lindsay Rowe. She's actually from my community, and she talked about creating space for athletes and building community and what that looks like. This was so much more than just about volleyball. It's about creating environments where athletes feel seen and they have a safe place to go and practice. Cassidy Lichtman, and this was one of the most exciting interviews. She has been literally building professional volleyball in America and been a key player in it. She was a Stanford star to Team USA gold medalist to director of volleyball at Athletes Unlimited. She talked about the revolutionary AU volleyball, where players have equity in the league and teams are redrafted every week of some of the most amazing volleyball players in the entire world. And she said something that stuck with me about teams that gel quickly. She said that they've had teams in the past that look amazing on paper and they don't work. And then they've also had teams that don't look as amazing from a stats perspective and it gels and works out. And that applies to so much more than just volleyball. And the theme here is really don't wait for someone else to build what you need, build it yourself. Another theme, the coach effect. And this is what I was kind of talking about earlier. Coaches change lives, period. And this season, we heard from coaches who are really doing it right. My old coach, Coach Andy Stepp, this one was deeply personal for me. He moved me from outside hitter to middle during my sophomore year at Supernova. And one coach, one decision, everything for the rest of my volleyball career changed. He and his wife, Heather, shaped the player and coach I am today, and I am forever grateful for them. And in that episode, he shared his 900 square feet philosophy that absolutely blew my mind. He said, your side of the court is 900 square feet. If you worry about the other side, that's 1,800 square feet. Add parents watching, 600 square. The next court over, your next opponent in a tournament, 7,200 square feet you're trying to control. And here's the thing, 6 players can cover 900 square feet pretty easily. Nobody can cover 7,200 square feet. Focus on what you can control. And that applies to volleyball and it applies to life. He also talked about the difference between mistakes and failures and how he talks to every single player that doesn't make one of his teams. That's what a coach who cares looks like. Coach Kelsay, Michigan State's head volleyball coach. This episode will forever go down as my absolute favorite. And it was a full circle moment for me as someone who grew up in the Michigan State volleyball world. She talked about building champions through leadership, legacy, and what she calls courageous conflict. She said problems go up, not out. When you vent to your teammates, it might take 4 weeks to get back to your coach. But when you go directly to your coach, that can actually help in a much more efficient manner. That takes courage. And that's what builds champion teams. She also talked about how college athletes are 18 to 22-year-olds and they're still figuring out who they are for the first time, navigating how to be great teammates, daughters, partners, and students all at once. And she's determined to continuously set the best standard for her team. And that is what a true, genuine coach looks like, putting her program first, putting her values first, and really just making sure her team and players are set up for success both on and off the court. My good friend Amanda Lynch joined the podcast this year too. We went over libero lessons, superstitions, and coaching success. She brought so much energy and wisdom, and I really, really appreciated all that she shared, along with how amazing of a coach she is and the mentor she is to so many athletes. I know she changed so many athletes' lives, and all of them should be forever grateful for that. And Ellen Dempsey, the winningest coach in Hiram College history, she talked about her journey from champions to now running the Side Out Foundation, leading volleyball's fight against metastatic breast cancer through the Dig Pink movement. She said, sports is a vehicle for life. It's not just about volleyball. It's about learning to work as a team, developing leadership, dealing with failure, and finding your voice. When her players cross that stage 4 years later, they're ready for what's next, and she makes sure of it. That's what great coaching looks like. Another theme, of course, to touch on is position-specific real talk. We got into the weeds on what it actually looks like to play specific positions at high levels. My good friend Bryn Nagel talked about the quarterback complex all setters face, the pressure, the decision-making, the leadership that comes with running an offense. If you're a setter or coach, this episode is essential. Professional volleyball player Bella Bergmark took us inside the mind of a professional middle blocker. Two-time NCAA champion at Texas, played for Athletes Unlimited, and played professionally globally. She's talked about how different pro volleyball is from college. She said the speed is so fast, like you really don't have time. In college, you can close any block, and then you go pro, and you're like, whoa, you got girls who just jump higher than you've ever seen in your life. And I think it is just such a cool difference to see the level of skill change. She also got real about perfectionism and the constant questioning of when is enough? When am I good with where I'm at? And that mental health conversation matters at every level as an athlete. We all want to be the best we can. That's why we got into sports in the first place. And it's just really interesting to see from once you do make it to the highest levels, what is next and how to kind of navigate that process. And lastly, Brooke Nuneviller shared her path to professional volleyball from Oregon to the Omaha Supernovas to signing with Mizuno. She's talked about what it actually takes to make it as a pro. And she said she learned that keeping the sport fun after 20 years is actually a skill you have to work at and just continue to drive through your passion. And then last theme I, of course, have to touch on is the harder conversations we've had on She Is That. And that was a big part of why I started this, is to talk about the things that nobody's really highlighting or bringing to light. And there were so many solo episodes that I just took the time and I knew I wanted to touch on those topics. The ones where it was just me and you having the real conversations, the stuff that doesn't get talked about enough, like the hidden game of politics and power dynamics. I went there because, let's be honest, this exists in every single program, and pretending it doesn't helps no one. We talked about that you've got starters who could probably skip practice and still start, and then you have the bench players who maybe work 5 times as hard for half the recognition. And I said something that I think a lot of you need to hear is you're not crazy. Like, the game is rigged sometimes. So don't allow somebody to take the sport from you if you are going through something like that. I talked about the coach's daughter phenomenon, being friends with competitors for your position, and what happens when you start playing scared because one mistake might bench you while others get unlimited chances. That episode was for everyone who's ever questioned if they were actually not good enough. And the answer is you are not crazy for noticing it. Another episode was the parent every athlete needs and the one they don't. And this one hit different for a lot of families that reached out to me. I said that you're not raising a volleyball player, you're raising a future adult who happens to play volleyball right now. The lessons our kids learn from sports, resilience, teamwork, handling pressure, bouncing back from failure, those are life skills, but only if we let them learn them. This one got a lot of messages too, was your child doesn't need another coach. They need a soft place to land when the sport gets hard. And I also talked about the car ride home. What you say around the dinner table will absolutely come back up in games when it matters most. And I heard from so many parents after that episode who said they needed to hear it. Another episode was Your Sign to Stop Waiting. That episode was me 3 months into this podcast being completely real about the midnight edits and morning meetings and wondering if any of it was genuinely working, honestly. And I said, if you're waiting for the perfect time to start something, this is your sign to stop waiting. And I meant it. Like, progress isn't perfect, and that's okay. The mess is the magic. And we all get to our end goal eventually, or it takes us to another place in life that we never thought imaginable. Off-season reset episode, because rest is part of the work. Believe it or not, I have to remind myself that all the time. You can't pour from an empty cup. But that episode was really about burnout and recognizing when volleyball has become a chore instead of a choice. And I remember saying, like, the off-season gap isn't dead time, it's your reset. Use it to remember why you started playing, come back playing free instead of scared. And then a few last episodes was the back to school, new season, stronger you. The Sunday scaries are real. And that episode was for every athlete who's checked their sport bag 12 times the night before tryouts. I used to have dreams that I forgot it at home. I don't know why, what that anxiety stemmed from. And of course, the episodes that started this all was navigating tryouts and clipboard truths, what coaches actually look for. Those first two solo episodes laid the foundation for everything She Aced That became. And these solo conversations matter because they're real. Like, She Aced That isn't about pretending everything's perfect. It's about being honest about the stuff nobody else is willing to say out loud. So what is next for She Aced That? And obviously, I don't know fully. The future can hold amazing things. There's things I'll be announcing next year that are currently in the works, but we are having a season 2, like I said earlier, which I'm feel so blessed that I'm able to hold this platform and continue another season with it. And that will start January 7th of next year. And we will be kicking it off with, again, a girly from my favorite school in the whole world. She's a senior and she's been through it all with that program. She's been there for 4 years, the highs, the lows, the coaching changes, and that is the perfect way to start the new year. So really looking forward to the guests for season 2. Next week, I already have like 7 interviews lined up for season 2. So the positive is that we're gaining the momentum. We're still having guests, and that's all I can ask for is for people to come on and use this platform to get their stories out there and to help others. So there's so much more coming. Please stay tuned for that. And I know I've said this on a podcast before, but I am building the She Aced That collection wall. So I've been collecting meaningful items from podcast guests to display on a wall behind me and things that represent their stories and who they are. And it's going to be so special. The things that I've gotten so far is just meaningful. Like, even if it's a coaching t-shirt, like I know I said this before, but like my old coach gave me one of his coaching polos from when he was coaching me. It just means a lot that other people are willing to give me something that means a lot to them for me to hold on to for safekeeping and represent them. So we'll have more professional volleyball players. We'll have more mental performance deep dives, more community builders, and more of what made season 1 what it was, and then some. And of course, before I let all of you go, I need to say thank you to every single guest who's trusted me with their story. Thank you. You said yes to a brand new podcast and gave your time and your truth. And that's not nothing. I'm going to name drop quick right now, but Liz Coe, Andy Stott, Kristen Woodman, Jess Connect, Coach Kelsay, Ellen Dempsey, Cassidy Lichtman, Bella Bergmark, Brooke Nuneviller, Mackenzie Yoakum, Catherine Richardson, Lindsay Rowe, Alex Rapaski, Amanda Lynch, Brendan Engel, Alyssa Kerrigan. Every single one of you made this season what it was. To every listener who pressed play, whether you've been here since July or just found us last week, thank you. You could listen to anything and you chose She Aced That. You shared episodes with teammates. You told coaches about us. You DM'd me saying an episode helped you, and that means everything to me. To the volleyball community that raised me, coached me, pushed me, and continues to welcome me, this podcast is my way of starting to give back to a community that gave me everything. I've learned so much, I've grown so much, and I'm so proud of what we built together because I could never do this all alone. Take the next couple weeks to enjoy the holidays with your family or friends. Spend time with the people you love. That's my goal the rest of this month. And rest if you need it. And I will see you all on January 7th. Thank you for listening to She Aced That. There will be new episodes every single Wednesday. Follow She Aced That on Instagram and TikTok. Subscribe on YouTube. Check out our merch on sheacedthat.com. And if you love this episode, share it with someone who you think would love it, who you think would appreciate it. Happy holidays, everybody. And I will see you all in January.